You don't have to be in the same house to be in the same destiny. You don't have to wear a ring to be married in the soul. And just because he's with someone else now doesn't mean the bond between you disappeared. Because real unions don't fade with time or distance. They wait for alignment. They awaken through contrast. And they test you until you remember who you are beyond appearances. The universe is not cruel, it's precise. And if your union was written in the stars, then every delay, every silence, every twist is part of the ceremony. The question is, are you hearing the signs? Have you already said yes in your soul, even if he hasn't yet? Comment, I feel the sacred union unfolding if your heart has already heard the invitation. Most people think of marriage as an event, a date on the calendar, a ceremony, a dress, a ring. But for twin flames, marriage is not something that begins with vows. It begins with recognition. That moment your soul looks into his soul and says, I remember you. I know you. I already said yes. This is the kind of sacred union that happens long before any physical agreement. It's older than your body. It's older than your lifetime. It was written in the frequency of your being long before either of you knew how to love. But that kind of union doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in initiation. Because marrying your twin flame isn't about completing a fantasy. It's about becoming the version of yourself that can hold that frequency without crumbling under the weight of what it reveals. Soul marriage is not for the faint-hearted. It will demand your truth. It will demand your surrender. It will strip away your illusions of what love is supposed to be, until all that's left is what love actually is. And what is it? It is not possession. It is not timing. It is not appearance or approval. It is presence. It is vibration. It is the knowing that no matter what reality looks like today, you are already connected at the root. Have you ever felt married to him, even though you haven't spoken in months? Even though he's in a different relationship? Even though the world would call you crazy? That's not delusion. That's remembrance. Because in the twin flame path, the real union starts in the unseen. And what begins in spirit takes time to land in form, especially when both souls are still learning to hold the weight of that love. This is why some twins separate. This is why many go through other karmic connections first. This is why you're tested in silence, in longing, in dreams that won't go away. Because your union isn't just about you and him. It's about what your love does to the collective grid, what it activates in others. what it awakens in the world. That's why the universe protects these unions with fire. It doesn't allow shortcuts. It doesn't allow illusions to masquerade as commitment. So when people ask, "But are we going to get married?" they often mean, "Will we be together physically?" But the soul is asking a different question. Have you already made the inner commitment? Have you already said yes to your own becoming? Because the real ceremony doesn't happen when he gets on one knee. It happens when your soul stops begging and starts radiating truth. That's when the frequency locks in. That's when the timelines begin to shift. That's when the masculine starts feeling something he can't explain. A pull, a memory, a call home. And even if he's still married to someone else, the soul knows where it truly belongs. Not out of shame, not out of blame, but out of the sacred longing to return to truth. So don't wait for the proposal. Make the proposal to yourself. Say yes to your path. Say yes to your peace. Say yes to the version of you that doesn't need to chase love, because she is love. And when you stand there, fully in your light, unapologetically whole, married to your essence, that's when the divine masculine starts to remember too. That's when the outer begins to reflect the inner. That's when maybe someday starts to become its time. Because soul-level marriage doesn't begin with two people. It begins with one person who's willing to become the altar, you. Why the universe allows delays and what they activate in you. No soul path is linear, especially not the twin flame journey. If your union is delayed, it's not because something went wrong. It's because something sacred is being prepared. The human mind sees delays as punishment, but the soul sees them as refinement, as sacred pauses designed to activate parts of you that cannot awaken in comfort, only in surrender. Have you ever felt like the universe was keeping you apart on purpose? Like something greater was orchestrating the distance, the timing, the silence? You're not imagining it. The universe is never confused. When twin flames meet, an ancient energy is awakened, a memory, a frequency that shakes the illusion of separation. And while that sounds beautiful, it's also terrifying to the ego. So instead of rushing to fulfill the dream, the universe slows everything down. Because you don't just need each other, you need alignment. You need to burn through every old belief that says love must come through sacrifice. You need to remember that union is not reward, it's resonance, and resonance cannot be faked. Delays come when one or both of you are still carrying patterns that would sabotage the connection. when your nervous system still expects love to leave, when your heart still believes it has to prove itself to be chosen, when he still thinks presence is weakness and silence is safety. These timelines need space to collapse, not through waiting, but through witnessing. Every delay is an invitation to see what still lives in you that cannot survive inside sacred union, because this love is different. It doesn't want your performance. It wants your presence. It wants the version of you that doesn't chase, doesn't doubt, doesn't shrink. It wants the version of you that breathes peace even when chaos rises. It wants the you who knows, if it's mine by soul, I don't have to beg for it in flesh. The delay activates the healer in you, the priestess, the woman who no longer negotiates her worth based on someone else's confusion. Have you felt that shift? That moment when you stopped asking when and started asking, who am I becoming in the waiting? That's when the delay becomes sacred, because it starts turning wounds into wisdom, hope into embodiment, desire into divine clarity. And here's the truth. The delay is not punishment. It's alchemy. It's where the feminine learns not to overextend, not to explain, not to carry what isn't hers to heal. It's where she learns to hold her power without hardening her heart, to love without losing herself, to be soft without collapsing. This is why the universe delays union, because it wants you both to meet as wholes, not halves, as sovereigns, not saviors, as mirrors, not medicine. So instead of asking, why hasn't he returned yet? Ask, what am I still learning about unconditional love? What fear in me is being purified by this pause? What version of me is being born in this sacred waiting? Because when the inner reunion happens, when your soul stops asking for validation and starts radiating truth, you become a match for the love that doesn't run, the love that doesn't ghost, the love that doesn't make you doubt your light. And when that happens, you'll realize the delay was never a denial. It was an initiation, a divine alignment, a protection, a preparation for a kind of love that doesn't just promise forever. It carries the frequency of eternity. Some connections are felt in the body, but twin flame connections, they're etched in the soul. Before you ever met him, you felt something pulling you toward someone you hadn't yet seen. Before he ever said your name, your dreams were already spelling it in light. And even after lifetimes of silence, something in you knows this isn't just another love story. This is sacred architecture. You're not imagining the signs. You're not making up the synchronicities. The universe speaks in patterns, and when your union is part of a higher plan, that language becomes louder, more frequent, more undeniable. Have you ever seen repeating numbers like 1111, 222, or 717 right when you're thinking about him? Have you ever had songs, dreams, or strangers echo messages that feel too perfect to be coincidence? That's not fantasy, that's alignment. And these signs aren't there to tease you. They're not just breadcrumbs. They're affirmations, a divine nod that says, keep going. You're not alone. You're being guided. Because when two souls are meant to serve together, the universe becomes an active participant. It moves people. It shifts timelines. It creates chance encounters and random delays just to put you in the right place, with the right energy, at the right moment. Even the challenges are designed. Have you noticed how every breakdown somehow breaks you open? How every trigger with him forces you into deeper healing, deeper clarity? That's by design. Because this love isn't here to just make you feel good, it's here to wake you up. When your union is part of a higher plan, you start to notice that it's not just about him returning. It's about you returning to yourself, to your mission, to your voice. And he too is being worked on. In silence, in shadows, in his own sacred unraveling. Even if you can't see it, his soul is moving. Because when one flame activates, the other cannot stay asleep forever. You begin to realize that your connection is not ruled by logic or time. It's governed by divine order. And you start to trust it. You start to feel peace even in the not knowing. You start to understand that the more you surrender, the more signs appear. Because this love doesn't follow human blueprints, it follows a cosmic contract. And every time you align with your higher self, you fulfill another part of that agreement. So what are the signs? Your energy shifts just by thinking of him. You sense him in your field even when he's not around. You feel a pull to grow, to heal, to become more whole. You receive guidance through numbers, dreams, synchronicities. You feel a deeper purpose, a calling you can't ignore. You know this love is different because it transforms you. This isn't obsession, it's activation. Because true union isn't about getting someone to stay. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to chase. The higher plan doesn't promise ease, but it promises truth. And if your union is part of that divine blueprint, you'll find yourself constantly being pulled back to center, to clarity, to the version of you that remembers why you came. So let the signs speak. Let the delays purify. Let the longing become light. And trust, if your soul carries the imprint of this union, then the universe will not let it fall. It will rise, not always when you expect, but always when you're ready. There is no greater ache than loving someone who belongs to another world. You know he's your twin flame. Your soul has whispered it through every dream, every tear, every unexplainable connection. But when your heart turns toward him, his hands are holding another story. He's married, and yet you feel married to him in spirit. How do you hold that paradox? The divine feminine knows. This journey was never about possession. It was always about preparation. Because sometimes the soul signs a contract the body is not yet ready to fulfill. And in those moments, the universe wraps the connection in delay, not denial. A sacred pause, not a punishment. When he is with someone else, the ego screams, "It's over." But the soul whispers, "Not yet." It's easy to fall into the belief that his current marriage means he's chosen another path. But in the twin flame journey, choices aren't made with logic alone. They are orchestrated by higher timelines, each designed to strip away what is false until only truth remains. So why would the divine masculine be in another union? Because his soul needed the mirror of that relationship to reveal what is unhealed, unresolved, and unrealized within him. That marriage may not be about love. It may be about karma, about learning boundaries, about feeling the pain of pretending. You are not his punishment. You are his awakening. But he must reach that on his own, without force, without interference. Have you ever felt like your love was silently guiding him, even while he was with her? Like your presence existed in his field, showing him what freedom could feel like? That's real. Because the spiritual bond doesn't end where the legal one begins. But neither does it bypass integrity. Your role is not to take him, it's to become. To become the version of you who knows that even now you are part of his transformation. Not through seduction, but through stability. Not by interrupting his path, but by illuminating your own. And if he's meant to return, he will. Not by force, but by truth. Because soul marriage is not a transaction. It's a transmission. And if his current relationship was built on fear, convenience, or illusion, it will begin to tremble. Not because you pushed, but because your light made the lie impossible to hold. This is not about waiting. This is about witnessing. Can you witness his process without collapsing into despair? Can you trust that what's meant for you cannot be claimed by someone else? Because here is the sacred truth. His marriage may be a detour, but it is not his destination. Your role is to anchor the frequency of love that doesn't manipulate, doesn't compete, doesn't shrink. And in doing so, you invite the universe to clear what no longer resonates from his life and from yours. The twin flame path is not about getting what you want. It's about becoming what your soul chose. And that means embracing the unfolding, even when it hurts. So let his marriage be a mirror, not of rejection, but of readiness. Let it show you where you still seek control, where you still crave rescue, where you still question your worth, and then release it. Not him, but the illusion that this delay defines your destiny. Because when union is divine, no paper, no ring, no circumstance can stop what is sacred. It can only slow it until both are ready to rise. Long before he ever says the words, long before he reaches for your hand or admits what he feels, you've already whispered yes within your soul. It wasn't a conscious decision. It wasn't based on how consistent he was, how present, how ready. It was deeper. It was a soul-level vibration that moved through you the moment you saw something in him that felt eternal. You said yes when his silence felt louder than anyone else's words. You said yes when his eyes held something ancient, something home. You said yes, not because he earned it, but because your huddle recognized him before your mind could even understand. But what does this yes really mean? It's not a yes to waiting. It's not a yes to pain. It's not a yes to tolerating breadcrumbs while calling it devotion. It's a yes to truth. A yes to the connection that lives beyond time, beyond roles, beyond logic. It's a yes to the path that unfolds your becoming. Because the awakened feminine doesn't need the masculine to say yes first. She doesn't wait for him to validate what she already knows. She leads with energy. She anchors the union by embodying it long before it shows up in form. This yes is quiet, but it moves mountains. It's the reason you kept believing, even when there was no evidence. It's the reason you chose healing, not revenge. It's the reason you're still here, clearer, softer, wiser. Have you noticed how everything in your life began to shift after this connection? How old patterns broke, how new standards were born, how your mission, your voice, your essence, all started to rise. That's the ripple of your yes. It's not about obsessing over him. It's about committing to your truth. Your soul said yes, not to a fantasy, but to the frequency of sacred love. A love that transforms you before it ever touches you. And the masculine, he feels this. Even when he doesn't understand it, even when he's in another relationship, even when he runs, he feels the energetic shift when the feminine stops chasing and starts embodying. That's when the magnetic field activates. Because her yes isn't loud, it doesn't beg, it doesn't prove, it just is. And that frequency speaks louder than any conversation. It tells him, you are free to rise. You are not behind. You are not broken. But I will no longer collapse to meet you. I am standing in truth, and you are welcome to join me. That's the invitation. That's the portal. When the feminine says yes to herself, to her mission, her voice, her sacred wholeness, she creates a path he can walk into when he's ready. Have you felt that moment when he reaches out right after you reclaim your power? When synchronicities flood your world after surrender? That's not random. That's resonance. This yes is not an emotional contract. It's a vibrational alignment. And every time you choose it again, through stillness, through clarity, through trust, you bring the union closer. Because sacred love cannot be rushed, but it can be remembered. So let him find his way, not to your door, but to his truth. You've already said yes. Now become it. There's a moment in the twin flame journey that isn't marked by a conversation or a kiss or a promise. It's marked by an energetic shift, a quiet inner knowing, a vibration that says, I'm no longer choosing based on fear. This is sacred commitment, and it doesn't wait for a ceremony, a title, or a shared address. It arrives when your soul stops negotiating with doubt, when your energy stops asking for proof and starts radiating truth. This isn't about saying, I'm ready with your mouth. It's about becoming ready in your vibration. And readiness, in this sacred sense, is not about perfection. It's about devotion. Are you devoted to your own light, even when his feels far? Are you devoted to the connection, even when there's no confirmation? Are you devoted to your path, even if it means walking alone for now? Because sacred commitment is not passive. It's not sitting still, hoping he returns. It's walking forward with your heart open, your energy clean, your soul anchored in love, with or without his presence. It is the frequency that tells the universe, I'm aligned with the truth of this bond, and I will not shrink for it, chase it, or beg for it. I will become it. And And that frequency activates something divine. It shifts timelines. It clears karma. It dissolves soul contracts that no longer match your path. It calls your masculine home, not through force, but through resonance. Because when the feminine commits not just to him, but to the sacred purpose of the union itself, she opens a portal. She becomes the vibration of union, not the idea of it, not the hope for it, the embodiment. And that changes everything. Have you ever felt the sudden stillness after you finally let go of fear? The strange peace that follows your decision to stop doubting your inner knowing? That's the beginning of sacred commitment. It's the moment when your presence begins to speak louder than his absence, when your love becomes a living force, not because it's reciprocated, but because it's real. The divine masculine feels this, even if he doesn't know how to name it, even if he's still entangled elsewhere, even if he's still healing. He senses the anchor. He senses the invitation. He senses the love that no longer wavers. And slowly, without needing to be pulled, he begins to match the frequency. This is why sacred commitment is not about pushing him forward. It's about pulling yourself into alignment so fully that your energy speaks the vows your mouth hasn't yet said. And these vows sound like this: I will not abandon myself to prove I love you. I will not shrink to be closer to you. I will love you through the eyes of truth, but I will not betray my soul to do it. That is sacred. That is sovereign. That is what shifts the story. So if you feel it rising, this frequency of deep, quiet, immovable commitment, honor it. You don't need permission to stand in love. You don't need evidence to embody what your soul knows. You just need to say yes, and say it again and again, until your very presence becomes the altar where sacred union comes home.